Om Shanti. I know we're a small group, so I don't know if anyone wants to move forward a bit. I know some of you are fixed with your headphones, but if anyone would like to move forward, then be a little more intimate. Plenty of space here. Otherwise, seems far away. Thank you. So it's a very nice theme. It starts from the heart. Just let everybody move. And I suppose the first question is, where is the heart? We think about the heart being here in the body, and of course whatever feelings are going on in the soul, the heart, physical heart, tends to react. The heart thumps when you're nervous or excited, blood pressure goes up. It's a lot of physical effects from the heart. But in spiritual terms, when Daddy Janki's spoken of the heart, she will say, the heart is in the soul. So that capacity for deep feeling is definitely within the soul. And the heart, the intellect, the conscience are all very closely connected. Because if you think about your conscience and the way that operates, it's a very deep feeling inside of what is right and what is true, right? So it's also the heart that's telling you this is the right thing or this is not the right thing. Sometimes we don't listen, and when we don't listen to the conscience, then usually later on, for some reason or another, when we face the consequences of that, then yes, there are different feelings, different emotions, and then the heart is up in upheaval, and there's guilt. So it is important to follow your heart or follow your conscience. Although it's also very important not to mix up following your heart with following your own desires. And so it's very easy to say, I really feel I have to do this, but it's really my desires speaking. And I remember once being with Daddy and somebody came to ask her something, Daddy, shall I do this? And I could see myself, and I know Daddy could see that probably wasn't the best thing for this person at this time. So Daddy tried to explain. And then the person said, oh, but Baba's telling me, my heart is telling me, I have to do it. At that point, she just said, okay. Because sometimes our heart also deceives us. So in listening to the heart, and we need to be very yogyukt, our heart too needs to be filled with yoga power. So the heart, very interesting. The heart is not necessarily, it's not actually about emotions, but the heart are about the very deep, pure, the heart is about the very deep, pure feelings that we experience from Baba. So when I think of the heart, I like to think about pure, deep feelings. And I mentioned this with the Vietnamese group the other day, that once I'd asked Daddy the question, what does it mean to be a master seed? Because it had come in the Muralis, and then, so I asked her, and she just went quiet and thought, and then she said, okay, be totally detached, be absorbed with Baba, fill yourself from Baba. Then you come back to the task that you have to do, and then you don't need to think about the task because it's his task, it's not your task. And then she said, the one who is a master seed will have a clear head and a strong heart. And so connecting that with today's topic, a heart that's filled with deep, pure feelings, but not a heart that's influenced. So if the heart is strong, the heart will only be influenced by the deep, pure feelings from Baba. But if the heart is weak, there'll be many influences, including the influences of my own desires and the influences of my own past sanskaras, which is why yoga power, we keep coming back to that, is very, very essential to keep my heart strong and to keep my heart safe. So actually it does all start from the heart. Maya too starts from the heart. Because I begin to feel, sometimes Baba says that if a situation happens, your feelings shouldn't change. If I do have my feelings change, then Baba used to say in the Murali sometimes it's the flu of feelings. You've caught the flu, caught the influence. And again, I remember Daddy saying to me once when I asked her a particular question, that if somebody comes in front of me and in front of her and, they're negative or whatever, okay, she'll listen, do whatever. Then the person goes away afterwards and she says, I'm left the same as I was. I'm not different. In other words, the heart is strong. The heart is not influenced by the external. And so this is the kind of strength that we need. And in today's Murli, Baba talked about becoming unshakable, immovable, and becoming fearless. Fearless to see the scenes that are to come. And I know some of you in different countries have already experienced many more fearsome scenes than I've experienced in the UK. We're still pretty protected. And so I need to prepare. Is my heart strong? Am I unshakable? Am I unmovable? And on the basis of that, the yoga power I have accumulated, am I fearless? Actually, we had a very lovely scene in a meeting. We were about 15 in a meeting, and there was a sound from the balcony, as if of monkeys. And one of the brothers stood up. Have they come inside? And he was ready to go and face the monkeys. I said, oh, you're my hero. But he was fearless, going to protect everybody, face the monkeys. Actually, they hadn't come inside, so it was okay. It was a sweet scene. But there are many things. When we say everything starts from the heart, think about how you begin to make a change in yourself, because we all go through many phases in Gyan, right? So when we first come to Baba, why do we start to change? Because it's really like something awakens in us. And it's almost like overnight we become different. Is that right for many of you? Change happens very quickly. Habits changed, awareness changes, and then people around us, especially our families, say, what's happened to you all of a sudden? It's like a new part awakens in us. The Brahmin part awakens. But the point is that for that to happen, something stirs in the heart. Right? some feelings change. If there wasn't some change in our feelings, we wouldn't move forward. It would just be theory. It would just be like information. And we'd say, okay, very nice, and go. It's like Baba says, some souls just listen and go away. Very good, but no effect. But for Brahmin souls, it starts with that change in feelings. Yes, something that is said to me makes me feel different. And then once you feel different, am I right? You can't walk away from it. I know I had many tears at the beginning of Gyan for various reasons and things I wasn't happy about, but I knew I couldn't walk away. And here we are today together. So something stirs in the heart, and when it's strong, when it's deep, you can't ignore your heart. You have to move along that track. And of course, as Baba's children, Baba helps so much. And that saying that we often hear in the Murlis, 1 step of courage of the child and 1,000 steps of courage from the Father. 1,000 steps of help from the Father. And, without that stirring in the heart, we don't have courage, actually. Right? Courage comes because something is stirred in the heart. You have to do something. Otherwise, we'd walk away. But we take that step of courage because something has moved us. And I'm coming back to this thing that it's not just about being emotional. It really is about a much deeper stirring of something long forgotten within. But also, in the world, generally, people like to get emotional, don't they? People get emotional over causes, they become passionate over film stars, pop stars, football stars. People become very emotional. I was at the Parliament of the World's Religions just last month in Salt Lake City. And there was a lot of very, very powerful speakers. There were 10,000, nearly 10,000 people gathered. It was a huge gathering. Very powerful speakers. And they were talking about different issues, whether about women, about poverty, about the environment, hate and prejudice, the very powerful, cutting issues of the time. And, they were all very adept at these sound bites. They'd say something, everybody would applause, and how it is, stirring people's emotions. And then one speaker is actually from the UK, professor, and a Muslim professor. He comes onto the stage, and the first thing he says is, "Please don't clap during my speech. I don't want you to become emotional, because peace is not about emotion. Peace is about a spiritual change within, and that is what we have to do, and we won't achieve it by becoming emotional." And you could feel his presence as he said it. And it was very powerful. And by the end of his talk, he was becoming a little emotional about some things. And he said, "You see, I'm not following my own advice. I'm becoming emotional. I have to come back to that spiritual core." And his speech stood out because of that. And, as Brahmins too, we can become quite emotional about our yoga and about the family and about, service and great to get excited and be happy. And, we see the daddies get so excited about things. But it's not something that becomes external. It's something that's based on a genuine feeling that's being taken from Baba. And it's not something that then, it's something that's filled with power. Emotion is not filled with power or strength. Emotion comes and emotion goes. It takes you up and then it brings you down. So then you feel great when you're up, but when you come down, you haven't gained anything, actually. In fact, you've lost. Emotion actually drains you. And I know that because I can get emotional and then you pay for it, you know. Well, I got influenced, I got affected. And quite a few years back, I began to see the difference in yoga between emotional yoga and real yoga. And you know how sometimes people will say, I think not so much now, actually. So I think maybe the whole family has matured and even newer people don't speak like this so much. But there used to be a time when people would sit there and say, oh, I had this wonderful experience. I went up above and Baba did this and Baba did that, and they're all kind of in rapture. And other poor people sitting listening, I don't have those experiences. And if you had those kind of interactions, and you know, I figured out that it's emotional. It's not real yoga. Real yoga is very subtle, very deep. It's something that's very refined, gives us strength, and it's certainly something that we don't need to tell anyone else about. If I have this wonderful experience, I've got to go and tell everybody. Well, why? Your experience is with you. And if really there is that yoga power, others will see it anyway. It's not something you have to shout about. It becomes visible. I don't have to prove it. Anything I have to prove actually is not real. Do you need to prove the truth? No. So it's so interesting the way emotion comes in and deceives us in different ways. One thing that, well, amongst many things I love about Daddy Janki is that because there isn't that external influence, Daddy's able to see through to what is true and real. And I think, and this is something for us all to follow, to look beyond just the obvious, to look beyond just what you can see in the external. And, you know, when I think about the first Westerners that arrived in London at her doorstep, well, Baba's doorstep, and some were hippies and some didn't really look like Brahmins at all, or even potential Brahmins in terms of their dress and whatever. But Daddy, if she'd been limited at all, she would have thought, what's going on? Who are these people? But Daddy saw through that to the soul. And this ability to see through the external, to see through to what is true and real. And there's a very lovely story that I read just very, very recently. I was given a book by somebody about stories of the stranger and how we respond to taking in those who perhaps don't look the same as us, perhaps don't seem to fit. And I think this is a very important thing in itself. How do we respond? Because there are people who kind of fit the mold, great, welcome. Others a little bit different, but we also have to say, great, welcome. But this story, it's a story of a mullah, and there was a banquet going on, very lavish banquet, and he went past the door, and he felt attracted. So he came to the door to go in, but he was dressed in rather scruffy kind of clothes and didn't look very neat or anything. So the two people on guard at the door looked at him up and down, and they sent him away. You can't come in. So then he went home, and he found his best dress, beautiful shoes, put on a beautiful long lavish turban, looked beautiful. Then he went back to the banquet, and when the two people on the guards on the door saw him, they said, "Oh, please come in, come in." So he sat down at the banquet. And as the food was being served, first there was some soup. So he had these big sleeves, So first he took the soup and he poured it down one of his sleeves. Then they brought some other vegetables, so he opened the other sleeve and poured it down there. Then they brought chicken, not vegetarian, but never mind, a chicken leg. So he took the chicken leg and he put it in his turban. And the one who was hosting the banquet said, "What are you doing?" He thought, "What is he going to do next?" So he said, "What are you doing? Stop, what's going on? What are you doing? Mullah, what are you doing?" And he said, "Well, it was my clothes that were welcome at the banquet, so I thought my clothes should take benefit." So I like that story because he was making a point. You didn't look at the soul, you didn't look at the being, you just looked at the external. And when things start from the heart, then we have an ability to go beyond just the external and really see what's happening in the heart of people. And there's really lovely stories of Baba where Brahma Baba would see, Daddy tells a story of, one sister who everybody rejected. She was a little bit, not very bright and didn't look very good, and, you can understand nobody really wanted her in the community. And she came to Baba's door, she came to the yajna, and she saw Baba, and Baba saw her. Baba took her in, and she used to clean and do things for Baba with so much love, so much love. Baba used to give her so much love. And she gained so much happiness. So Baba never looked at just the form. Baba understood the soul, and Baba encouraged the soul itself. And it's good, isn't it, just as well, because you think about how all of we came to Baba, and what did Baba see in us, and how Baba encouraged us. And so, if things start from the head, I'll just see the external. But if things start from the heart, then my response will be very different. I'll be listening more closely to what it is that Baba wants. Coming back to this thing of what stirs within, I think it's very important to think about how it is that I listen to Baba's Murli. This really tells me what's going on in my heart and whether things start from the heart. When I listen to Baba's Murli, does something stir in me? I've been listening to Murlis, as I say now, 39 years. How many rounds, if you divide it by 5, 7, 8 times, I've heard the same Murlis come around. And yet I always feel every Murli's new. I don't think, sometimes I remember, yes, I have heard this one before. And then other times I say, wow, how come I never noticed that point before? Something new, something different. And today, as I mentioned, especially what touched me, where Baba talked about being unshakable and fearless. And as I heard that, I was saying to myself within, okay, Baba, yes, that's part of my aim, but with your help, with the Yogyuk connection, now is the time to make sure that that's not just an aim in the distance, but it's an aim for now, because the time is now. So I didn't just say, oh yeah, I've heard Baba say that before. As I hear the Murli, as we hear the Murli, something stirs in me. It's very, very important. If, as you hear Baba's Murli, you get a little bored or you say, well, I've heard it before, then there's something lacking in your relationship with Baba, and it's very important to put it right. And this is how soul... confirmation. This is how souls drift off, because something doesn't touch them. The Murli stops touching them. And then it's as if everything drains away. It's as if there's a hole in the intellect. I have to rekindle that stirring in the heart. And, okay, how can I do that? And there'll be different ways. You know, why do we hear the Murli every day? And why do we hear the Murli in the class? Okay, sure, some people do live a long distance away or are genuinely not well enough to come in the class. So yes, now we have all the Skype facilities and everything. But I know that, you know, that's really if there's a need. Otherwise, the number one thing is to hear the Murli in the atmosphere of the class. Why? Because the vibrations are amplified. They're magnified. So that I'm hearing the Murli in a heightened atmosphere, a refined atmosphere. So I have more chance of the atmosphere of Baba's house influencing me, and I have more chance of the Murli stirring something within me. But whatever is my situation, let me listen to the Murli and let me say, okay, Baba, when I sit down, whether it's to read the Murli or to listen to the Murli, I have one little mantra at the moment. Still mind, still body. Just sit there. Then you're open to really listen. And you can create your own mantra. These little mantras I find very helpful. When you're not sure of something, or it's just a little phrase inside that just reminds you, just takes you somewhere. And still mind, still body. Sit there. Then, yes, I can open myself. I can absorb something from the Murli. And the Murli washes over me and in itself gives me strength. But if I sit there and it's like, oh yeah, have to do that, have to do this, sometimes it happens to me too, of course. Then I'm distracted by my thoughts. These are very simple things, but things that happen to all of us. And I have to focus myself. I have to find that method of focusing myself as I'm listening to Baba's Murli. Because then not only will I be able to catch something new and vibrant and vital from the Murli for me that will give me strength through the whole day, but I'm also then contributing to the atmosphere for others. And that's a big service for us to do, just being in the class and contributing to the atmosphere. But how I listen to the Murli is so, so important. And if I'm not able to focus on the Murli, then I have to ask myself, how much regard do I have for Baba? For Baba as the teacher, therefore Baba in all relationships. If I don't have regard for one relationship, then how can I have regard for all the other relationships? Father, teacher, Sadguru, although Baba says they're separate, but they're also one. One and the other and the other. So, something very important to pay attention to. That stillness of the mind when listening to Baba's Murli, so that Baba's Murli can get in. And we all have okay, I'm involved in Baba's work all the time, but still there's, 100 different responsibilities or whatever. So plenty of possibility for distraction. But I have to say to myself, now is not the time. If I'm distracted now at the time of the Murli class, then I won't be able to be focused and yog-yukt for the rest of the day. So of course everything starts from Amrit Vela. That's the preparation. And at Amrit Vela, the more we practice the bodiless stage, and it's not something that you need to make effort about. I used to think that the bodiless stage was something laborious. Oh, I have to somehow separate myself from the body and get there and go up above and all of that. Actually, if you sit with the pure thought of that aim of being in that stage, and you just make your mind still in that thought, then Baba does the rest. You don't need to labour. This is the shortcut. Be stable in that one pure thought. And then Baba will pull the soul into that stage. And then let me absorb myself in that. At that moment I have to let go and not allow other things to pull me, but let go completely and trust Baba as to where Baba's going to take me. And I can accumulate a lot of yoga power in that stage. And then yes, as I prepare for the class and I come in the class, that vibration will stay with me. So that, yes, whether I'm the instrument to share the Murli, whether I'm sitting listening to the Murli will have a very profound effect on me because I've prepared myself in that way. And so I'll absorb. It's the difference between your intellect being like a dry sponge and a wet sponge. If the sponge is damp, it absorbs water quickly. If it's dry, it takes a long time. And then, of course, that's going to influence the whole day. It's as if something has accumulated inside. So then, even if other things come to me and they want to affect my heart, I come back to that core. This is what Baba wants for me. This is what Baba's given me. So how I listen to the Murli is so important. And part of starting from the heart, with the heart comes appreciation, acceptance, closeness. If I don't start from the heart, I won't be able to appreciate what Baba's given me. So it's the difference between doing things with that pure feeling from within, which brings about deeper feelings of gratitude, of acceptance, of appreciation. And Daddy often speaks about appreciation, how important it is to appreciate. And once in a gathering she said this, she said, it's important to appreciate someone in the right way before someone else appreciates them in the wrong way. So I was curious. I said, Daddy, do you mean that how I interpreted it is that if you appreciate someone in the right way, you appreciate them for who Baba has made them. So you again connect them with Baba, not with you. But if you appreciate them in the wrong way, you're appreciating them on a human level, and that will come back to you. And there'll be a subtle bondage. See the difference? Yeah? So appreciation in the right way, and whether it's a Brahmin soul, and especially we do need a lot of appreciation of each other in the family. I do feel that. You know, we work together and so on, and sometimes we do take each other for granted. Little appreciation, a thank you, a smile, doesn't cost anything, but it means a lot. But in my heart, let there always be the appreciation for what Baba has made that soul. Yeah, so Daddy said yes, she agreed. What Baba has made that soul, because we all who we are because of what Baba has made us. And then I'll be able to help totally with that atmosphere of empowerment. What is our service to create an atmosphere where others can come close to Baba? And the other day in the blessing, I think it was, or one of the part of the Avyat Murli, Baba spoke about using the specialities of others. So, can I appreciate the speciality of another, even if, you know, sometimes when there's a little spark of something, you know that if you fan it a little, it'll grow into a flame. If you just see it as a spark, you say, well, it's just a spark. Can I appreciate, and I'm very much talking to myself here, can I appreciate the spark, even the spark of a speciality in another, and give them that opportunity for that spark to become a flame, to become a speciality that is truly going to be useful to Baba and Baba's service. Pure feelings, good wishes. This is another aspect of the heart. Baba teaches us that no matter what's happening, have good wishes for everyone. Easy? Difficult? Difficult sometimes? No? Always easy? I remember once somebody calling me up, and I may have shared this before, and they said of somebody they know had done something very bad to a friend of theirs, and he said, you know, Papa teaches us to have good wishes and pure feelings, but I want to go and strangle him. I mean, he didn't mean it literally, but it's a saying in English, you know, I was really angry. How can I have good wishes for that person? Look what he's done. So I paused, I remember Baba, and then I said to this person on the phone, okay, what would be the best outcome that you could think about for that other person? So he stopped and he thought, well, okay, I would wish them to realize what they've done, apologize, reform, change their character. I said, okay, that's good wishes. Even to have the thought that somebody can change and be better and be different and realize, that's good wishes. So we mustn't be miserly in this, because every soul can change and every soul will change. And sometimes we know ourselves, sometimes we change because really we make that internal effort, sometimes we change because circumstances force us. But even if circumstances are forcing us, we still have to be proactive inside. Somebody I know who's a very close contact, his wife passed away now a couple of years ago. She had a very, very difficult illness, and it was very, very difficult for him. And so even a year later, still very difficult, a lot of sorrow. And then a few months after that, he said to me, well, okay, he's a very active person. He said, okay, well, I'm on my own now, it's happened. Now I have my life to live, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to live it well. And that really touched me. He's not a BK, but has benefited hugely from Baba's teachings. So can I do that too? Can I say, okay, something's happened. Maybe there's some baggage of guilt. Maybe there's some baggage of sorrow. So I have to accept myself. I think now is the time. I was saying to somebody just recently that, you know, we've been in Gyan, some for a short time, some for a long time. Many of Baba's instruments in different tasks. And by that I don't just mean running a centre or something, but departments, being instruments in Baba's centres. Even if we're not living in the centre, we come to the centre, we're instruments in different tasks, right? We're all instruments. And I was reflecting and saying that, you know, none of us have been perfect instruments, right? Anybody? Anybody perfect? None of us. And so because you're not a perfect instrument, there will be times, even when you have not wished to, it's not been in your intent, but because of your ego, your deception, the influence of your heart, on your heart, you would have given sorrow. You would have done things not in the best yogyukt way. All of us. And so it will come back to us. Sometimes sooner, immediately, sometimes later. People harbour things and it comes back. And so I was saying, you know, it's time for us all to have a lot of compassion for the self. Compassion for the self, compassion for others. And part of that compassion is to say, okay, I accept I may not have done this the best way, but I did my best. And so now I'm moving forward. That's compassion. I'm not going to stay in the past. And sometimes we feel we maybe have not fulfilled our duty enough, whether to the Lokik or Alokik family. Even there we can only say, I did my best according to my understanding and my stage at the time. So from my heart, let me accept myself, which also means forgive myself, which also means I'm giving myself the permission to now do it better and to move on. What else do we have to do? Sangam Yug's very short. We have to move on. So everything starting from the heart is so important. And so let me continue to listen to the deep inner feelings that I have inside and not compromise the truth. Sometimes others, you know that others may not accept, but still, you have to try. You have to be true to yourself. Truth and the heart go together. Okay, Om Shanti. Let's have time for a few comments or questions, if there are any. Yeah. You stand up, speak loud. Okay, explain, okay, I'll repeat this question. Explain a bit more the difference between the conscience and the heart. Actually, the two are closely connected, and you can kind of switch them around as well a little bit, but usually the conscience is connected with the intellect, and the conscience becomes refined when I have absorbed Gyan in my intellect. So the more I've absorbed Gyan, not just in terms of understanding Gyan, and yes, when we come to Baba we understand the soul, supreme soul, tree, cycle, whatever, But I always like to say, I really understand Gyan when I understand the principles of Gyan that Baba's teaching me. Just understanding the teachings will not enable me to change my life, but understanding the principles, the spiritual principles that Baba's teaching me, will enable me to change my life, because I'll be able to apply those principles in every situation. Gyan is not a prescription where you say, if you do this, if this happens, do this. Baba doesn't really, sometimes he gives yuktis like that, but if you think especially of the Avyat Muralis, and remember that Mama and Baba became Karmatit on the basis of the Saka Muralis, so the Avyat Muralis are the deeper underlying understandings and principles contained in the Saka Muralis, which Mama, Baba and the daddies already saw at that time. But Baba had to help all of us see it. So those deeper principles are the things which enable us to become truly spiritual. And that informs our conscience. We don't want to go against any principle of the yajna. Principle on the yajna means Baba. And there's that lovely story Daddy tells, and it was a time when in Pune Baba was coming, and she was having to hire a place for Baba, and the gardener needed a little bit of extra money to open the place up. But because that money was given, Baba didn't come. And there's another situation recently. If we accept something personally, it changes, or violates a principle. And then things don't go quite right. Service will not continue on a true basis if we violate a principle. You see what I mean? And that's where, when we understand the deep principles of honesty and truth, and we don't just say, oh well, it's okay, and we stand up for the truth, and we're strong in that, then that's when our conscience is really working. And then, yes, my heart will be clear and strong enough to catch those deep feelings. So if the heart is not strong, the heart will get influenced by others and come into feelings, and then I won't be able to catch what the conscience is saying. But if my heart is strong, then I will catch what the conscience is saying. But also, if my intellect has imbibed Gyan in a deep way, then I'll be able to, my conscience will be strong and my intellect will be strong, so it can even then overrule the heart. And we all experience this at times, where our heart's pulling one way and I know, no, I shouldn't, and shouldn't I, right? So this is the play going on. But it's when I imbibe Gyan deeply and understand the principles that Baba's teaching me, then I understand what to do. And if you just go stay still inside, you know what Baba wants. It's just the commentary inside that takes you away from it. But silence, and you know what Baba wants. Am I right? Has that helped? Yeah, thank you. There was another question, I think. No? Thanks, it's helped clarify it for me too. It's a good question. No other questions? Come out to the mic if you don't mind. Could you come to the mic, then it'll also be recorded.
As you say, still mind and still body. But sometimes sitting very still without jotting down anything, it makes us sleepy. So it's very nice that when we listen to Murli in the classroom, but normally 6 days a week we have to listen from home. So please suggest some more tips.
Okay, thank you. Still mind and still body can mean you become sleepy. When I say still mind and still body, I mean alertness, not... so I mean a still mind, an alert mind, very, very alert. Maybe I should have clarified that. Very, very alert. But yes, this is the thing, when I'm in the atmosphere of the center, it's easier because the atmosphere's there. I'm there for that purpose. I don't have other things to do. I'm sitting at home and I can get distracted by so many things. That's why if it's possible in your home, it's really good to make a little place for Baba, even if it's not a room, because not everybody has a spare room for that. But even if it's a little corner, and I know that that's the corner where I meditate, I do my Amrit Vela, I listen to my Murli. So it's like, that place itself gathers an atmosphere. So that's one thing that's very helpful. And then, of course, I need to still follow all that routine, that, pardon me, to get up, to be bathed, be dressed, alert, have my cup of tea, whatever I would do before class normally, so that I'm there in that alert state. I'm treating it truly as my study time. And it really is then a question of a lot of determination. And actually, this is another aspect of the heart, isn't it, which we didn't bring in. That when my heart is strong, I'll also be very determined. You think about the times when you have been able to accomplish something, whether it's a change in your inner state, whether it's, something of service, but you've accomplished something which seemed pretty impossible. I'm sure you've all had those experiences. I know I have. And, when I look at it, it's because I've been very determined inside. And it's a kind of determination where you don't allow any other possibility. It's going to happen. That's it. And so I need to be very determined inside to make the best of my study. And I'm glad Baba's given me the facility to listen. Even then I'm tuned in. Otherwise, just reading is another phase. But remember when Daddy Janki would always talk about how she really asked Baba for a tape recorder because just reading the Murli was different, but hearing Baba on the tape. And Baba would always say, the tape recorder is my most accurate child because the tape recorder repeats the Murli exactly without even a change. And so, okay, I'm able to tune into the class, that's a fortune. At the moment we have the facilities available, who knows in the future. And not so long ago, Baba did talk, Avyat Murli, a few weeks back, rely on the sadhana, on your endeavour, not the sadhana, the facilities. But while I have the facilities, great, make the most of them.